So today's webinar is on the coverage plan maintenance. We are going to go through the coverage plan setup and talk about what it all means and how it should be set up for your billing to go through correctly the first time. Definitely, if you have questions, let our support team know, and we'll be happy to answer those for you. Now, for the coverage plans, as you know, are set up under File Billing, Billing Setup, and then we have our coverage plan table. Okay, we're going to go in and we're going to create a new insurance today. Basically, what we're looking at in this grid is the name of the insurance and the address, the phone number that's been set up, and the HIPAA class, and we'll talk about each of these. There's a search box up at the top where you can start typing an insurance name and it will narrow down your search results, okay? So what we're going to do is we are actually going to go in and add a new plan, and we're going to start from scratch. So we're going to come over to the right side of our table and click the Add button. Okay, now when you click Add, you're just going to get a blank screen. Now what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up just another AARP insurance today, and we're going to call it UHC. For merging purposes later, we're going to go ahead and just create a duplicate. Okay, maybe this insurance has a different address than what's in the system currently. So we're going to go ahead and put in the address, and we're going to tab over and put in our zip code. All right, with insurance plans, we do not need the +4 on the insurance zip code. That is not required at this point, so you don't have to worry about getting that information. And then just below that, we have the pre-cert phone number. You can go ahead and add a pre-cert phone number. And we have the benefits confirmation number. Now, these two phone numbers will show up in the patient demographics screen when you go to the insurance tab on the patient's account. So you can view those phone numbers and quickly obtain that information to make any phone calls that you need to. Now, in the background, you see the phone number over here that does display on this main table when you have it pulled up. The contact is where that phone number pulls from, okay? So under this general information tab, we have contacts. This is for basically your reference. If you have a specific rep that you can call for AARP help or claims, then you can go ahead and put that name in here. All right, so we're just going to call this person rep name. And then we're going to go ahead and put the phone number of 987-6543. Okay, you can go on, put in the fax number. There's room for a second contact, phone number, fax, and then down at the bottom you have a note section for any additional information you need to keep track of for this particular coverage. Now, if we were to go ahead and click OK and refresh this screen, okay, now that phone number shows up. Here's our AARP UHC plan. So that, just so you know, that's the phone number that pulls. It is not the pre-cert or the benefits. It does pull from the contact phone number. All right. So that's the first tab, this general information. Over in the top right corner, you have your coverage classification. With the most recent versions, it's been changed for a little while, but the coverage classification should be set to commercial. Okay. If it's a Blue Cross, go ahead and choose Blue Cross, Champus, Medicare, Medicaid. But the others, typically, you're not going to need to use any longer. This is since the change was made for 5010 from 4010 about 2 years ago. So you can just leave them at commercial. You do not have to go through and do HMO or PPO or liability or anything like that. If it is a workers' comp plan, go ahead and you can mark that appropriately also. Okay, so the next box is our rate link. The purpose of this rate link is to only have to set up one fee schedule for a group of insurances, essentially. So if I had created a fee schedule for AARP, and now I'm adding this AARP UHC plan, I can tell my Management Plus that this AARP UHC plan needs to follow the same fee schedule that I have set up in the system for straight AARP. Okay, so allows you to have multiple coverages using the same specific fee schedule without having to create that fee schedule for every single insurance that you have in your system, because as you know, that would be extremely time consuming, especially when you have to go in and update those rates. All right. Now, this next box that says coverage is Medigap. This coverage is Medigap is for this particular insurance that we're on. So if this AARP was a secondary coverage to on any patient account, it's secondary to Medicare. Medicare is going to cross over that secondary claim for us. We want to tell Management Plus, don't worry about printing or sending that secondary claim out of the system. Medicare is going to cross it over. So by checking this box, you can see the information, says see information regarding automatic crossovers on the claim processing tab. So we need to go to the claim processing tab, and in the middle on the left side there's a box that says Medicare automatic crossover. Now with these boxes, when one of them is checked, the other one has to be also. Okay, and you can see the note says if this coverage is an automatic crossover, check this box in addition to the coverage as Medigap. So those two boxes have to be checked together, and what happens is when you process that primary claim for your patients to Medicare, we're going to flip both flags in the claim tab, the claim view tab on the financial form. We're going to flip both flags for Medicare and for this AARP that's a secondary to say, yes, we've processed this. The reason for that is then once your Medicare pays and that remittance is posted, the secondary claim will not automatically generate because we know Medicare has crossed it over. Okay, so that's what those two boxes are for. If AARP is secondary to any other insurances, these boxes do nothing. They only kick into play when the system sees that this insurance is secondary to Medicare on any given patient. All right? So let's talk about these other boxes on this claim processing tab while we're in here. The electronic payer ID. This is the payer ID that you're going to obtain from either clearinghouse. Okay, whether you're using Gateway or Relay Health, there's going to be a payer ID that we will need to put in this field so that when we process claims and send them to the clearinghouse, they know what insurance it's for. It uses that Gateway uses a 5-digit payer ID that can be obtained on their website. Relay Health uses a 4-digit CPID that we can pull from their website. So if that's something that you need assistance in getting, let our support team know and we'll be more than happy to assist you. Okay? Now, the next box over says delay claim until activity from primary. This box is checked by default for every single insurance. The only way it would be unchecked is if someone goes and unchecks it. The purpose of this box is if AARP, you can see the text below, is a secondary insurance on any patient, that claim should not be processed and released from Management Plus until there is action from the primary insurance. So if this box is unchecked, what's going to happen is your primary claim, your secondary claim will go out of Management Plus at the same time, and that is not what we want it to do, because of course your secondary claim will kick back and it's just more work for you to go fix that claim and get it, you know, basically hold it until the primary responds. So leaving that box checked is going to save you that extra time. Okay? If this coverage is a plan that requires referral authorizations, then we want to check this box. I know I've seen some TRICARE, some Blue Cross plans that do require a referral authorization. When this box is checked, it prompts you in that patient's account. It's going to kind of remind you that this patient does or does not have a valid referral entered in their demographics. And that's going to be another webinar. However, I'm sure some of you have seen it where you get a pop-up message that says there's no valid referral does not exist for this patient, or it will keep track of how many visits are left for that patient. So that's where you can essentially turn on or turn off that requirement to obtain a referral. Okay? We talked about the Medicare crossover. Again, it has to work in conjunction with the Coverages Medigap up at the top. Okay? If you have a facility and you are billing facility claims on a UB04, you do need to come in and specify that when we are printing UB claims, we need to use the UB04 module. Now, all of these other modules that you see in here, they are state-specific. That's prior to the forms changing to UB04 when it was a UB92 form. Each state had their own requirements, and so we had to go in, of course we had the default, but then we had to go in and specify the other states. So currently, the UB04 is the only valid option for this field. Okay? Now, we're going to skip this for just a moment. We're going to come back to this claim processing information. First, we're going to just go through the rest of the tabs on this screen so you know what they are. Okay, with assignment, the assignment tab, by default, every insurance is going to have the option accept assignment by coverage plan. Okay, if your office is set up or your physicians are differently where they do not accept assignment or you accept assignment by physician, you can go in and choose the appropriate option. However, by default, every insurance will be set to accept assignment by coverage plan and bill correctly. Okay? The anesthesia billing. If you are billing anesthesia, the codes, of course, are set up. The CPT codes are in the system already. But this is where we can come in and say, for when I am billing anesthesia, these are kind of the base units we're going to start with. Okay, so for emergency conditions, maybe we want to add 5 units. If the patient is less than a certain age or over a certain age, you can add a certain number of units, if they're over 70. The time units, you can add 1 unit for each 15 minutes of time. You can change that, of course, to any number that you need to be billing. After X amount of minutes, maybe this is after 50 minutes, we're going to add 5 units to each, 5 units to each 15 minutes of time. All right, so whatever is appropriate, however you need to bill for each insurance, you can set these up ahead of time here. You can set it to round time intervals, to the nearest interval or the nearest tenth. By default, it's just going to be the nearest interval. When you're printing claims, you can tell it to default the anesthesia quantity as units or minutes. I know some insurances want one or the other, and I have seen that be different. Over on the right side, we have the CPT codes. So if we go in and we right-click and add, we can pull one of our anesthesia codes, and we're just going to grab this one. And maybe the base units for this reconstructive anesthesia is going to be 10. Okay, that's our starting point. Maybe it's 50. Whatever the case is, you can go in and set those up, and it will show in this list. All right? So when you post charges with that CPT code, it's automatically going to start at 5 units instead of 1. Now, if you are not doing anesthesia billing, of course, there's nothing for you to come in and set up. You don't need to really worry about this. Okay, the next tab over is for capitation. If this insurance plan was a capitated coverage, we can go in and check the box to say this is a capitated plan. Here's the capitation adjustment type. We can come in here and look at the capitation. Maybe we need to add a new one. That's just capitation adjustment. Okay. Then when you are posting charges for these coverages, that's the adjustment that will display. You can tell it, do you want to print the claim, yes or no. And then if there are any CPT codes that are non-capitated coverages, or I'm sorry, non-capitated CPT codes, you can add those to a list here. And that will bill normally, kind of overriding this capitated rule. Okay, so that is something that you will want to set up if you have any of those applicable plans. All right. Now, the next tab may not pertain to everyone, and this is something that I don't see used very often anymore. It's been several years since I've seen anybody really go set this up. The purpose of the optical benefit tab is for optical orders, we can come in to the global properties of this insurance. Okay, basically we can go in and say every single patient that has this particular plan of AARP UHC, their benefit for frames is going to be $80. Their lenses, maybe they have $120, or you can set, 80% up to a certain dollar amount, or there's also a combination of frames and lenses, and then the frames, lenses, and options. Okay, so maybe their maximum coverage is going to be $200 for frames, lenses, and options. All right. So really, when we set any information up in this screen, we are saying every patient who has this coverage, here's the benefit to pull as you're posting that optical order, and it's going to use these benefits unless there's something set up at the patient level that would override it. Now, the reason, as you can imagine, the reason this is not used very often is because every patient is going to have slightly different benefits. Not every patient with this insurance is going to be covered the same way. So by setting it up here, you're really just doing unnecessary work because of those different plans. There's so many out there. You really want to just keep verifying individual patient eligibility for optical orders and use that information instead of setting it up where it's going to apply to every single patient. You can certainly do this if you'd like, or if it is applicable to your office. Down at the bottom, you can come in and specify a certain lens. So maybe, for single vision high index, the benefit is only $65, okay, or a percentage up to a certain dollar amount. All right. The next tab over is for lens options. Same thing. We can come in here and say that for anti-reflective coating, their benefit is $30 or a certain percentage. And then contact lenses, the same thing. Maybe their contacts, they are allowed $40, except for the AV Advanced, that they're only allowed, we'll just say $36. Okay, so you can go in and set up specific benefits that will apply to every patient with that insurance. If that's something that you want to set up, certainly feel free to do so, but just know it will carry over into every patient for you. Okay, the next tab over is for eligibility. This eligibility tab is, again, where we're going to put in the specific payer ID for eligibility. Now, the eligibility payer ID is different for either clearinghouse. It doesn't matter. The payer IDs are different for claims and eligibility. We cannot come over here and just type in the same one that we used before on this claim processing tab because it will not work. Each insurance has their own, and it's usually some sort of alpha combination. I have seen a few that are alphanumeric. They are very different from the claim processing payer ID. So you just keep that in mind. Now, the benefit is really only for Relay Health clients. If you are using Gateway, this will not work at this time. Development is working with Gateway to have an integrated eligibility process so that batch eligibility is available. With Relay Health currently, we can go in and put in this payer ID and then go back over here to File, Eligibility. We can run a batch. It sends it all of your patients for tomorrow's schedule, for example. All of those patient names will go to Relay Health with the insurance and the ID numbers for each patient, and then Relay Health connects to each of those payers that have a payer ID set up in this window. Now, if there's no payer ID, then nothing will happen. It doesn't even recognize that that is set up for anything at all. Okay? The username and password, this is something that we would help you set up with the eligibility. It's typically only Medicare that wants this additional box filled out. It actually would cause you errors if we put a username and password for most of your plans. Okay? We set that up kind of at a global level from the file menu. We wouldn't do it here. All right? So that's the eligibility tab. If you need help with that, let our support team know, and we'll be happy to help you set that up or obtain those payer IDs or show you where to get them. Now, we're going to go back over to the claim processing as promised, and we're going to talk about claim processing information. Claim processing information is where we are going to set up and specify this insurance. When I have a claim, I want it to either print on paper or go electronically, whatever's the case. So we're going to come in here to claim processing. By default, every insurance that you set up initially is going to be set up to print a HCFA 1500. All right? Now, up at the top, you see your billing entities. This is our clinic, this is our ASC facility. All right? So we're going to start with the clinic, the physician group. These claims for this particular coverage, I want them to go electronically to Relay Health. So I'm going to change it from printing a HCFA to going electronically. Now, the first two boxes say always print secondary claims on paper, always print tertiary claims on paper. If I want AARP claims to go secondary electronically, I would just uncheck that box, and when this particular coverage is a secondary payer for a patient, then that's going to go electronically in my normal claims processing instead of printing out a paper claim. All right, same thing with tertiary. If these boxes are checked, a paper HCFA will print out. All right, now the next piece is to whom claims are sent. We need to go in and specify who we're sending these claims to. So this will say Relay Health or Gateway. Just so you know, the 5010 that we have set up, you probably have it as well on yours, is simply the version so that when we were transitioning everyone from the 4010 claims format to the 5010 claims format, we could separate the two clearinghouse options and make sure everything was going correctly. All right, processing DLL and then our common processing properties are listed on this left side. If you notice, we cannot click OK at this point. It's grayed out. That is because we need to go in and set up the coverage-specific properties. So we're going to go into Edit Coverage Properties. Now, don't let the screen overwhelm you. There are a lot of options that we're going to look at, but most of the time, I mean, your insurances should be set up already. You should only have to come in here when you're adding new coverages, or if there is an issue that you've identified, but hopefully, you'll give us a call and we can help you through that. Now, all of these boxes that have information are grayed out. The reason they are grayed out is we have these set up at the global level, which would have been done initially with your setup to go to that clearinghouse. So the submitter ID is just going to be your submitter ID from Relay Health or your site ID from Gateway. That's just basically your customer number that they have created for your practice. Okay. And we're going to say, have the claims been submitted, are they going to McKesson, which is Relay Health, or to Gateway? Okay. The McKesson billing ID, that's, again, just a billing ID that Relay Health has assigned for Gateway clients. They just use the site ID. All right. Then we have the transmit mode. We no longer use the web. Most of these will either be set up FTP or ATS, depending on who you're sending to. Okay, either one is fine. If there's an issue, just let us know, but you should be fine with those. Okay, they're just different transmission methods. One goes through a secure FTP connection. The other one goes through the internet, which is still secure with the way they set this ATS up. It's all, encrypted, and we're good as far as HIPAA goes. The web mailbox configuration, because we are not using the web option, we're not going to ever use this mailbox ID. Then we have the FTP configuration down below. Okay, these two addresses, the one that says TM box transactions, okay, this is just the FTP address for either Relay Health or you might have Gateway in here. If it's going FTP, it uses this information. The ATS setup does not. Okay. Then we have a username and password. The reason, again, these are grayed out is because they're all set up in global properties, and we don't need to go in and retype that information on every single insurance that you do set up. Okay? Now, any box that looks like you should be able to click in it, but it's gray, on the right side of that field, you're going to see this square. That's going to unlock it. Okay, so anytime you see a square, that means you probably need to click on it before you can actually go in and type. However, this checkbox that says do not delete files from FTP server leaves unchecked unless you are having problems. That does not have anything at all to do with saving the files in Management Plus. When it says do not delete files from the FTP server, that is not going to delete the temp files that come into your temp folder when you download from the clearinghouse. Okay, we do not want them to sit in your temp folder, so that's why we leave it unchecked unless there is an issue that we're trying to figure out and we need to see those temp files. All right, so don't worry about that. If yours is unchecked, it's okay. Just leave it unchecked. Now up at the top we have this receiver ID. So far everything that we've talked about has been grayed out. Okay, that information pulled in automatically for you. When you have a new insurance that you need to set up to go electronically to either clearinghouse, there really are only 3 pieces of information that you need to come in and edit. Okay, the first one is the receiver ID. This is the same payer ID that we used back here on the claim processing tab. Okay, that's going to be the same. If you tab, it's going to take you to the next field that needs to be completed, the secondary. This is where we need to specify the tax ID number. Okay, this is essentially box 33B on your printed claim form. All right, if you were to print out a claim, right here we have the NPI. This is box 33A, and then we have box 33B pulling from here. Okay, of course these are loops and segments, not referred to as boxes in the electronic format, but that's what it translates to. All right. Down at the bottom there is an additional drop-down. You can see this drop-down is a little bit different. You've got your Blue Cross numbers, CHAMPUS, Medicare, Medicaid numbers, provider commercial number, UPIN, site, all this good stuff. Before they had the NPI, everybody was required to send the tax ID plus a Blue Cross number and sometimes a UPIN or, the state license or whatever number the insurance wanted. That's where this box was used. Since the NPI switch, where we need to send the NPI and the tax ID, very rarely do we need to have any information in here. The exception to that statement would be if you have an insurance that says, I want the NPI, the tax ID, and your Medicaid number in this particular loop and segment. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's okay if it's empty. Up at the top, we've got a taxonomy code. So if you know that insurance requires a taxonomy code, we can come set it up in here, and it will go across electronically. And then a contact name if we need to have a contact name on that claim, which I know this was new with the 5010 as well. I've seen it a few times if there's like a paid to address, but it's not very common. But it's there if you do need it. And that's something that you would be told by your insurance, okay? My recommendation is if you're not having any problems, don't go in and change any of these boxes just because we're talking about them. We don't want to create more headaches for you. So under the additional tab, we have all of these little check boxes. All of these check boxes have been added over the years because we have insurance companies that come back and say, well, I want this or I don't want this information. So we have this additional tab to say, if this we're on AARP, UHC, maybe they only want the primary diagnosis for whatever reason. We can go check that box to only send the primary diagnosis, and it only applies to patients that have this particular insurance when we're sending claims to that insurance. There are very few boxes that are going to be checked in your system in this tab. Addenda 1 will be checked. You might have this one that says send 0 pay or paid amounts checked, so we can send 0 paid amounts on secondary claims. You would have one of these boxes checked to send pay or paid amounts at the claim level or at the charge level. Depending on the insurance, those might vary, and that's okay. If your insurance requires a taxonomy code, then we would tell the system this plan requires that taxonomy code. Just because we put it in the box here doesn't mean it's going to go. until we tell it it requires a taxonomy. Okay? So, like I said, you're not going to have very many boxes checked in this screen, and that's okay. Don't go in and check these unless, you know, you've talked to support and we've kind of pointed you in this direction, or we've done this with you, because this will affect what information does go on claims. Okay, I mean, you can see there's so many different things in this screen. We're not going to talk about every single one of them, and there's really not a lot of, there are not too many situations where we come in here a lot. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You really won't need to go in and do anything but the payer ID, employer identification from the drop-down, and the tax ID. Now with this tax ID drop-down, I need you to type in the tax ID. These two options that are in this drop-down, rendering provider, PIN, and group, these are prior to the NPI days as well, where, you know, like I said, everybody had their own number, Blue Cross, Medicare, Medicaid, and we needed to specify each of those for each insurance. All right, so just type in the tax ID. All right, now we're going to go ahead and click OK. So what we've done is we've set up the clinic for the CMS 1500. Okay, what we're going to go and talk about next are the facilities. So if you have a facility and we need to send claims on a UB04, we've already told the system whenever I print a UB04, I want it to be in that format. Okay, don't use the old one, use the new UB04. Now, if it's going electronically, it's slightly different. So we've been on physician group, CMS, electronic, that's great. But now we're going to go talk about the surgery center. Okay, so the physician surgery. Still, the CMS 1500 for this particular entity is set to print on a HCFA 1500. So if there are any claims for the surgery center, we want those to print on a HCFA. The reason I say that is we're going to go in and set it up correctly to go electronically, but we're going to do that on the UB form. Okay? Basically, on the UB, the setup is slightly different at the beginning, because we have to tell the system, yes, this insurance for this entity requires a UB for the facility fees. And then it's going to ask us what facilities require that UB04. So if we right-click and add a facility, here's a list of my facilities. This is the same list that it's going to go in box 32 on your claim form on a CMS. We're going to go to, I'm going to pick our hospitals. Okay, so I'm going to go right-click and add all of my hospitals that if I go do surgery there, then that claim has to print on a UB form. Okay, so here's my hospital. Now what's going to happen is when I'm posting charges for the surgery center and I choose one of these facilities, it's going to go on a UB form. Okay, whether it's paper or I change it to electronic. Any of these facilities on a claim with this entity will trigger that UB rule to kick in. Now, if I am posting charges for the surgery center and I choose physician group as my facility, or Sugar House office as my facility, because it is not saved in this list right here, it's going to default that one to print on a HCFA, because that facility, Sugar House office, is not set up as one of the facilities that require a UB04. All right? So once we have the facilities set up, this is my criteria, then we can go in and say, I want this to go on a printed form, or we're going to send it electronically. From here, it's the same steps. Do I want these secondary to go on paper? Yes or no? If it's checked, it's going to print. If it's unchecked, it will go electronically. To whom claims are sent? Well, we're going to send these still to Relay Health. Then we have to still go in and edit our coverage properties. Remember, the only 3 fields that you should have to change is your payer ID, which reads the UB04 payer IDs for institutional claims is different. So we're just going to put a star in here because this ID will be different than the one we used for the professional claims. Okay. Still want my tax ID number. And then the only other thing that you might need to change is if your ASC has a different group NPI, you would need to come in and change that just by typing over what was there for the clinic, because the global properties only saves one entry per field. So I cannot set up two different NPIs at the global level because it only saves one. Okay, so keep that in mind if you do have a different group NPI for your facility, which most offices that I've seen do. You will need to type over that and change that to be the group NPI for the facility. At that point, we can just click OK out of this. We've just set this plan to go electronically for any of these facilities on a UB. If they're not one of those facilities, they're going to print out a paper claim, which is going to get my attention that someone didn't choose the right facility when posting charges. Then for my group billing entity, going electronically on the CMS 1500 to Relay Health. And for the UBs, that clinic does not require a UB, so I don't need to check the box. I'm not going to do anything in here at all. All right? So that is how these plans are set up. Once you're done here, we can just click OK. There's an active box down in the bottom left corner. So as long as this is an active insurance that you're accepting, go ahead and leave it marked. We click OK, and that information is saved. Now, if I uncheck this active box and click OK, when I search for this, it's not going to find it because that's not an active coverage. And there you see this active checkbox up here. Okay, if I uncheck it, here's my inactive insurance. All right? So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for an insurance that you know is in your system and you cannot find it, uncheck that active box and see if it pulls up then, because it is possible it will. Now, we have two AARP plans. Okay, so we're going to just talk really quick about these other buttons down the right side of the screen. The favorites button, right now I do not have any favorites set up. Okay, if I did have a favorite list created, and coverage plans honestly is probably not the place to go create favorites, but you can if you want. If you find it helps you, that's great. Basically, you would highlight an insurance and right-click and add to favorites. Okay, so we're going to add these two to favorites. Now, we have such a large amount of insurances, it's going to take a minute. As soon as I click favorites, it's going to refresh my entire list and only show me the plans that are marked as favorite once it's done refreshing. It does take a long time to refresh because I have so many in here, but basically it should only be showing me the two AARP plans that I marked as a favorite, and then you can delete them from favorites as well if you're not using that list. So that being said, that is a new feature, the favorites button. Let me just see if I can make it show for you. This is a new button that they've added to every table. Primarily it was added for the medications grid in EHR, medications, the SNOMED, the low-INC, and the RX norm codes to make those lists a little more manageable because there's so much information. They do tend to take a little bit longer to load than, say, your coverage plans or your facilities. But because this is a standard table, it was just added to every table screen. Okay, so we added a new coverage. We can edit a coverage the same as double-clicking on it. You can delete an insurance as long as it has not been linked to a patient's account anywhere. Otherwise, it will not let you. Just mark it inactive. Okay, copy is just going to copy that plan. Okay, now I'm going to merge. Now, with merging, first off, you have to have permissions. The permission name is Coverage Plan Merge. Okay, you have to have merge rights. To merge, the way it works just like all other merges in the system. The thing you need to remember, though, with merging is once you merge something, it cannot be undone. We cannot log in and fix it for you. It cannot be unmerged. you would have to just kind of start from scratch and recreate what you lost. So be careful what you do merge. What's going to happen when you merge, you're going to go bad into good. So the one you want to get rid of, you're going to select first. And you're going to click merge, and then you're going to choose the good one, the one that you want to keep. Okay, so I have this AARP. I'm going to click OK. And because that was just a copy, it's going to tell you it's going to remove the first instance, the bad one that you selected, and every reference will show as the second one or the good one. Okay? Click OK. They were successfully merged. Now, if we look at AARP again, I still have too many. So what we're going to do is we're going to merge this one that we just created into this one that I didn't see that before. I don't know what happened. I just wasn't paying attention. I just added a new insurance unnecessarily. So I'm going to merge this bad one. Okay, merge. And we're going to do AARP, and we're going to choose the good one that we want to keep, which is the Carson Street. So it's going to tell you if you continue, if you click yes, every patient, every claim that has the 6502 Highland Drive address for AARP will now reflect AARP on Carson Street in Salt Lake. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click yes, we're sure, and now we are going, hopefully not get that, but once we were done, we would just have the one AARP left. Okay, the print button is to print a list of insurances. Now there's a ton of checkboxes in here. You can uncheck what you don't want to see. I'm going to go ahead and just preview this so you can see this is a list of the insurances that you have displayed. Okay, so it shows you up at the top in gray, those are all of your column headers. You probably want to delete some of those, especially where it's just giving you a T or F. That means true or false. Is this box checked at all? Okay. If that's, if you want to see all of this information, you certainly can, but I'm sure we could clean this up and only check the boxes that you want to see, just the name, the address, the zip code, the contact information. Maybe does it require a referral, and is it a Medigap? Everything else, you can simply uncheck that, and those boxes will not print out on that report for you. Okay, so that's what the print does. It just is to give you information about these insurances that are set up. Okay. There's a question that came in. If a secondary needs to go paper, the secondary that needs to go paper set up properly will automatically print out at Gateway when Medicare is posted to the patient's account. The secondaries, as far as Gateway goes, if Gateway is doing your secondary claims for you, right now there is not a way to automatically mark that secondary plan unless it's marked as a crossover. Okay, so if Medicare is going to forward that for you, mark it as a crossover in those two boxes that we looked at. If Gateway, if you have Gateway printing your or sending your secondary claims for you and you're not even messing with it, there's not a setting anywhere in here that will mark those secondary claims as processed. You do have to do that on the individual accounts. If it is set up, to print, it will try and print that paper claim unless you go flip the flag on the patient's account to stop it. All right, so you do have to do that individually on each patient, otherwise it will send a claim. Okay, so I do not have any other questions that have come in. Certainly if you do have questions, get a hold of our support team, send us an email, give us a call, let us know. We're happy to help you with these things. If you're wondering about your own insurances, give us a call and we can take a look at them with you. But again, there's typically not very often you'll have to come in here and change anything unless you're adding a new coverage and you want to set it up to go electronically. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions, again, let us know. Otherwise, I appreciate your time and hope you have a great day. Thanks so much.